So let's talk about zines, which are self-published booklets. That is the shortest definition I could think of for a zine. So this is a image from one of my favorite zines where every page has a picture of cats and cacti. And it's called Two Things I Love Together from 2009. So zines can be very funny or irreverent, and they can also be very serious. We're going to talk about that. So let me get to my next slide here. Why is that not working? Okay, sorry, I need to get a handle on my laptop that I don't normally use. So the most conservative definition of a zine, which I've already said is a self-published booklet, is a black and white self-published booklet, something that you can make on a photocopier. And historically, most zines were made on photocopiers. So people were either making them at their jobs and making them at places like what we would now call Office Max or Staples. There used to be a place called Kinko's. That was where you would go to make photocopies and flyers and to print out copies of your resume and things like that before we had all of our, desktop computers. So that's sort of the history of zines. And when people talk about zines in the United States, they tend to think about the 1980s, the 1990s. But I'm going to show you the history goes back further than that. I think that zines were totally influenced by pamphlets. And pamphlets have existed since the printing press was developed in, I think, the late 1400s. And pamphlets were not self-published, but they kind of were in the sense that they were little small print booklets printed somewhere. So you would say, okay, here's my pamphlet. I want you to print 200 copies for me. And you can see in both of these examples of anti-witchcraft pamphlets, you can see the printer's information. This is from 1643, printed by John Hammond, and this is reprinted by Andrew Stewart, et cetera, and this looks like around 1571. And a lot of these early pamphlets, these religious pamphlets, were very misogynistic. And it's kind of funny now looking back because a lot of zines now are actually radically feminist or queer and are sort of these, total reversals of early pamphlets. Now, by the 1800s, pamphlets were being published for progressive reasons rather than misogynistic ones. And these are examples of pamphlets that were designed to abolish the system of slavery in the United States. And they are from, one is from 1846 on the left, and one is from 1804. One on the left is an anti-slavery alphabet. It's pretty fascinating because it's actually designed to, visually illustrate the horrors of slavery. And it was presented at the Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society Fair. And a lot of the early abolitionists were Quakers. They had the religion of Quaker. And this is something that they were using to influence people to oppose slavery. And Ida B. Wells, later in that same century, was very concerned about lynching in the United States after the Civil War ended. And she was paying printers to make, many copies of these informational pamphlets to spread the word about what was happening in the South primarily. And, these are examples of like the most serious type of pamphlet booklet publishing that you could find. If you jump forward, I feel like I'm missing a slide here. No, slightly out of order. If you jump into the 20th century, or the 1900s, as I hear a lot of people describe it, we get into the era of desktop publishing, and also this kind of bridge between printing something on your own computer, truly desktop publishing, or going somewhere like Kinko's or Staples or your office and making photocopies there. But in the 1930s, before the era of desktop publishing, there was a small group of mostly straight white men who had access to technology that was not, widely distributed, and they were called mimeograph machines or ditto machines. And these science fiction fans were creating what were called fanzines. So you could think of zine as an abbreviation of fanzine. So some might say the earliest zines were science fiction fanzines from the 1930s and 1940s. And here's an example of one from 1940. At the same time, in the same century, there were other types of independent and radical publishing happening, self-publishing, but some of these publications were not small pamphlets. They were large newspapers, like this one, Come Out, which is a lesbian liberation forum publication in New York City in 1971. And even posters, I would put in the same realm as zine publishing. Anything that is visual, has text, and is an urgent form of communication, to me, can be put into the history of zine publishing and sharing. So, the mid-20th century was a time of protest. And I'm sure you've studied a lot of these protest movements in American history in high school. You can go back and look at these slides in more detail later if you'd like to, but this was happening at that time. Here's an example of a lesbian publication from the 1950s. Can you imagine how radical it was to publish that in the 1950s? I mean, you could lose your job for starters. And there were so many other, you could be institutionalized for being gay in the 1950s. So it was very radical. There was also something called One, which was more geared towards gay men. And that was from the same time period. And continues to exist, actually. Here are a couple environmental publications. One is from 1970, and it looks a little hopeful, New Beginning, the Mother Earth News. But then on the right, we have from 1998, a radical publication from the group Earth First. And we're seeing more grim imagery, a more pessimistic perspective at that moment. And their motto was "No compromise in defense of Mother Earth." In the early 1990s, there was a movement called the Riot Girl movement, and it was associated with young feminist punk rockers. And this image on the left is a cover of the first issue, I think, of Riot Girl zine. And at the time, it was very underground, very small community, and so much scholarship has developed over the years. And so many of the bands have become famous, or very, at least well-known, like Bikini Kill. So much so that libraries like New York University have special collections of these zines. So there's a Riot Girl collection at New York University at the Fales Library Special Collections, where you could actually go and look at all of these zines and listen to the records and watch video performances and all of that stuff. We have our own zine collection here, which I'm also here to sort of promote, but this is a very highly specialized historical collection at NYU. So at the same time that Riot Girl was sort of becoming kind of well-known, some of the bands were being interviewed by major magazines. There were hundreds of other underground zines and publications being made in the 1990s. And these are covers of some of them. There's another one called Thing, published in Chicago. This is about Black queer life in Chicago. And this is a screenshot of a Google search for Black Lives Matter zines in PDF. And I'm sort of I'm connecting back to the very serious socio-political pamphlet publishing of the 1800s, and now we're in the 21st century, and we have all kinds of people making very serious political zines, including zines associated with Black Lives Matter and related groups and movements. And sort of connecting back to those anti-witchcraft pamphlets from the 14 or 1500s. These are a couple zines about contemporary witchcraft. And while the one on the left is actually how the patriarchy weaponized the printing press to silence independent women. And then the one on the right is an exploration of secular witchcraft. And those are a nice complement to those earlier pamphlets. There's a group called the People of Color Zine Project. I'm not sure if you can see on this slide, and it's cut off a little bit, but this is a group of young BIPOC zine makers who formed an organization and actually went on tour at college campuses. And, they're sort of imitating the, rock band on tour. And they went and did zine making workshops and spoke at universities around the country. So, pause for a moment. Pamphlets are almost always very serious, and they are still published today. Some people prefer that term. They associate it with political activism and even subjects like public health. Now, zines, on the other hand, range from the utterly serious to the highly irreverent, fun, entertaining. This is a zine about food called Put an Egg on It. And this is issue number 8, or issue number 11, $8. So there is an increasing number of young people all over the world making zines. And here's a picture of this young person at one of the Brooklyn zine festivals in 2012. The zine's called Building Up Emotional Muscles, and it looks like a classic black and white zine with a kind of a simple drawing on the cover of a bicep. Internationally, zines are also being made. It's just a little bit harder in the United States to find out about them, but really targeted Google and Bing searches will reveal some things. This is from YouTube. This is a group called Zine Futures Workshop in East Africa, and you can watch this whole video on YouTube. And this is just a screenshot from it and a quote. The brilliant thing about zines is they're independent, you make them yourself. There's a group of young people, young women, I believe in Poland, and their group is called Girls to the Front. And this is a reference to a Riot Girl song, history, where when Riot Girl bands would perform, they would say girls to the front, because historically, if you're a woman or a young woman or a girl, you're shorter than guys, and you go to a concert and couldn't see anything because tall guys would be standing in front of you. So they would say, okay, I want all the girls to the front so they can see. And so that's where this group got their name. And here's just an image of one of their zine making events. These, what we call old school zines or analog zines or classic zines, are usually made with a few pieces of paper folded in half and a bunch of pictures or images, markers, pens, glue, tape, scissors, old books, old magazines, images that you've printed off the internet, and then you're going to cut them up and tape them or glue them into the little booklet of paper. And then when you finish making your zine, you make photocopies of it. That's the bottom line of making an old school zine. And that looks like what they're working on there. You can read this slide later, but it's just basically about how zines are more popular than ever. And particularly during the pandemic, people were really looking to connect. And there is also an increasing number of born digital zines designed to be read online. And there is also a big movement to digitize print zines, old school zines, in order to preserve them and to make them more widely available around the world. Here are a few contemporary zine projects that I like. This is called Yellow Pearls, and you can visit their website. This is their first issue. The theme was self-healing. This is an archive of digitized print zines from the 20th century, mainly. It's called the Queer Zine Archive Project. And these zines have been uploaded, and they use this software where you can turn the pages and see the whole zine. This is something called the Brown Recluse Zine Distro. A distro is simply a place where zines are for sale or trade. And this is a collectively run zine distro for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Anyone can buy zines here, but there's a request to pay an additional amount if you're an institution or a non-BIPOC person. This is to make sure that everything's being fairly exchanged. Here are some of the zines that are for sale on that site. Here's a zine called Black Women Matter, which has been digitized on the Internet Archive. There are a lot of zines on the Internet Archive, but this is what it looks like, the print zine. This is a screenshot of an image search for quarantine, because that was a whole movement of zines made during the quarantine, the early part of the pandemic. Ohio State University libraries are collecting zines made during the pandemic. I like this one on the right, I Miss People, which is described as for everyone, but especially for my fellow extroverts. So if you're a real extrovert and you love socializing and being with people, the shelter in place, that period of the pandemic was very difficult. And then here on the left is a fanzine, actually, dedicated to frontline workers called National Treasures. So you can get in touch with me. You can get in touch with Professor Bookman. You can get in touch with Derek Stroop from the Art and Design Department. We can take you to the Zine Library at 161 William Street on the 17th floor. You can click and view a spreadsheet that shows all the zines that we've collected so far. So maybe you would email us and say, oh, I'm interested in these 5 zines. Can you pull them for me so they can be ready for me when I visit? Or you're welcome to just go in and look around. So that is the slideshow that I made, but there are some other things I want to quickly talk about. For this class, there's a guide. If you go to the library's website, which you can find with Google, or just type library.pace.edu. Very easy. You go to the research guides tab instead of these other tabs. Research guides, you type in Bookman. You're going to see the guide that I made for this class. And some of this will be very similar to what I just said. And here's the slideshow I just showed you. And these are some images from our zine library. So as the semester goes on, I'll be revealing some more tabs over here and some more information for you. But this is the link to the current assignment to pick 2 zines and answer some questions about them. So here are some additional images from our zine library. And here's that link. I want to make sure that you can see that. So it's just a spreadsheet, really. So it's very simple and old fashioned. It's not searchable in any fancy way, but you could always hit like Control F and type in something like music. Shoot, I can't do that because it's not downloaded. Well, if I did, is that right? Hold on. I think it's because I'm in Zoom. Anyway, if you were to open this yourself and you hit Control F or Command F, you could type in like music, and then you could jump to each of the zines that are described as being about music. This is what this subject column is about. This is a good way to browse, is by the subjects. You can also browse by the titles, things like that. So let me go back here. And that is the link right there in this guide. You can also view this long list of either digitized zines or born digital zines, and you can select zines from there. Yes, this might be easier because they're right here, but it's more interesting and it's more of an experience to actually look at print zines. So I highly encourage you to look at the print zines. That's why we developed the collection in the library. Just means one extra step of just getting there. So we love to show it to you. So I hope this will help you. And one last thing that I want to say, zines can actually lead to professional opportunities. Some of the zines in our collection were written by people when they were young, and then those zines helped those people launch their careers. And this includes writers, graphic designers, fashion designers, journalists, artists, and even people in like advertising and public relations and marketing, and also academics. So for example, we have a zine called Shotgun Seamstress, and I had an image in the slideshow, and these are some of the zine covers. But the zine was so popular that it actually was collected into a book form. And this really increased the reputation of the zinester, person who made the zine. And now she's a published author. So zines can end up as books or parts of books. Gucci has a zine, and a lot of the famous fashion designers and fashion houses and even movie studios like A24. Somebody might be kind of cynical and say they're just kind of taking advantage of how zines are cool, so they want to cash in on that sort of cool factor. But I think I have a more positive attitude about it, because I see it as just sort of, you know, they're using their platform to reach people, and their zine is actually really serious. It's about social justice issues. And the first issue, this is the cover of the first issue. We have two of the issues in our zine library, actually. They're beautiful. They're very highly designed. They're not like those classic black and white simple zines. They're, you know, they took a lot of money to make. And they're part of Gucci's Equilibrium project, which was founded with Beyonce and Salma Hayek and all. And the zine is one part of their global campaign for gender equality. So the zines are very serious, but very impressively designed. And you can see those in our collection. So let me close some of these tabs. And then Grace Wales Bonner is a fashion designer who's very cool right now. And she has always used zines as part of her fashion design practice. And this is an article from another magazine, which itself is a very independent, cool magazine. This talks about how with her first collection, she also released a zine that went into different professional environments. They can lead to professional opportunities. They can lead to gallery shows for artists. They can lead to jobs for graphic designers. but they can also benefit people who are already in those roles. Like, and that can be a little cynical, like Gucci, A24 film studio. Kanye West put out some zines and, immediately they were free and then they were immediately going for like $2,000 on eBay. So zine culture is kind of all over the place, but I always think of it mainly as an expression of someone's personal issues and interests. They might be very politically inclined. They might be a poet. They might be a writer. They might just be a fan of something, but they feel a desire to actually create a print booklet to express themselves, and they want to get it into your hands. So if you have any questions about this, you can get in touch. Go back here again one more time. So I talked about searching for Bookman. You can also do just zines, and you'll see that we have several different guides about zines. This is the really epic one that I made. If this does appeal to you at all, you might want to look at this one because it shows even more about the relationships between zines and other types of publications like poetry chapbooks, vinyl records, and cassettes. There's this whole tradition of having kind of a zine insert inside the record. That's something I'm very interested in. And also, that's sort of underground and alternative press. This is this book called Smoking Typewriters. It's an ebook that you can click right on from this link. And this is about that sort of mid-20th century protest publishing. And so much more. There's so much more going on here. But I am here. My email is sthomas7@pace.edu. And I would love to show you zines at the Zine Library on William Street. And I'll be here all semester if you have questions or concerns about your assignments. I'm happy to help you. All right. So take care. And I hope to see you in person one of these days. Bye.